Are you House Stark or House Targaryen? Hell, even House Lannister. You know a Lannister always pays their debts. For 7 seasons, Game of Thrones has fascinated viewers with images of dragons, White Walkers, and terrible winters. But have we ever thought about the scientific facts that are actually displayed in G.O.T? I'm the Hip Hop MD. This is Hip Hop Science. I'm here at Cal State University, San Marcos, to listen to a fellow scientist break down the science behind Game of Thrones. Let's go. I'm here with PhD Dr. Rebecca Thompson. Do you go by Becky, Rebecca?
Becky.
Okay, we're going Becky today because we're personal, we're friends today. Awesome. So I heard about this event on Eventbrite, and you're doing the science of Game of Thrones.
Yep.
And I do the science of music, and I was like, this is a match made in heaven right here. And I'm also a big Game of Thrones fan, so I had to be here to come hear your speech. Talk to us a little bit about how you got into the science of Game of Thrones.
So I love having reasons to put science in pop culture. I love Game of Thrones, both the TV show and the book. I love it. And every time I watched it or read, I realized there were so many tiny science things in there.
Yeah, little nuggets everywhere.
Yeah, just little things that I wanted to sit down and analyze those.
Now, are you the type that watches shows and you're like, that's not possible, that's not real? Were you always that type?
No. And I tend not to do it unless it's really egregious. I loved getting to look in depth about biology and chemistry and physics, all related to the show.
Winter is coming.
Might just be the cold.
Winter is coming. It's cold outside.
You don't know cold.
Winter is coming for him.
It's either me or this cold, and it doesn't appear to be going anywhere.
And winter is coming.
You look cold, boys.
Tis a bit nippy.
So one of the first things we learn about Game of Thrones is that seasons are all sorts of wonky. Winter can last for 10 years, or winter can last for a year. How is it that you can have wonky seasons? Is that a thing that can actually happen? The reason we have seasons is because of the tilt of our Earth. And so because our Earth is tilted a little bit, we change between getting direct sun and indirect sun. If we had a giant ellipse orbit, like some other planets, that distance to the sun is going to matter a lot more. So it's a possibility that this planet of Westeros, this known world, is on a planet that has a very elliptical orbit.
Now, can you tell people a little bit about your name of your book?
So it's Fire, Ice, and Physics, the Science of Game of Thrones, and it just goes through everything you could think of. More in-depth discussion of seasons, to our White Walker zombies, the genetics of incest, because that's relevant.
A lot of incest in Game of Thrones.
And then the last chapter is analyzing the science of all the gory ways to die. The second biggest question I get asked is, can dragons really breathe fire? Cornstarch is very, very, very flammable when there's air in between it. So to have fire, you need a couple of things. You need a spark of some sort, a fuel, and air to create a combustion reaction. And so in here, I have a fuel, I have a spark, and I'm going to put some air in this cornstarch. One good question that I think is asked a lot less than how they might produce fire is, how do they not die from their own fire? So that's water, and that is not flammable. And then I have rubbing alcohol, about 90%. Then I'm going to take this dollar bill, dunk it in water, and then dunk it in the rubbing alcohol. And the dollar's totally fine. So what happened with this is that that fuel burned off, but the water put out that chemical reaction, put out that combustion reaction before it could catch the paper on fire.
You covered a lot of scientific facts here in your speech, okay? And a lot of stuff that I was thinking about in my head that I was like, oh, that's really cool. But I have some more. So we have Mountain, okay, who's now this zombie being thing, all right? Is it physically possible for a man to crush another man's head?
Elia Martel. I killed her children. Then I raped her. Then I smashed her head in like this.
Prince of Obsidian, he was my guy. And I was like, you got this in the bag. All you got, just kill him. It's over. You get to move on. Everybody's happy. And he got a little cocky, got a little confident, and got his head crushed. How much pressure would it take?
So it's not actually.
Okay.
To kind of analyze this, the first thing I needed to figure out was how strong is a human skull. And the shape of the human skull makes it stronger than, say, another bone in your body.
Because it's more circular, right? And that makes it hard. That makes it harder because as you're crushing, boom, there's too much resisting forces, right?
Right. And so I looked very hard to find someone that had done research in how strong the human skull is. A group that works designing very good bike helmets took cadaver skulls and filled them with fake brains and crushed them in a vice. Then looked up the amount of force that a large human man could produce. And NASA did studies on this, and they had people push against a force plate, and even extrapolating to the strongest human, there's not enough force to crush the skull.
Must be dragon glass.
Dragon glass?
The master's called it obsidian.
Glass is a very interesting material. It can be sometimes described as a slow-moving fluid, and there's a lot of different ways to create glasses and obsidian. And obsidian is very similar to other types of stone, only it's different in that it's cooled so quickly it creates this glass. There are a couple really interesting physics things. The first is, it really does happen to steel when it gets super cold. Here are some great images of steel versus obsidian. So steel is on the right, and obsidian is on the left. That steel is pitted and a little messed up. So in the cold, obsidian is going to stay very sharp. And even if it breaks, it's still going to be sharp, unlike the steel. Image on the left is what steel looks like up close. And the reason steel is hard to break is because it has a lot of little sections that are locked together in ways that it's not easy to break along one plane. This here is liquid nitrogen. It's so cold that as soon as it hits the air, it starts boiling. So this is a balloon with a lot of air in it. And it turned all the air to liquid, and then turned it back into a gas. So this is a racquetball.
So we're looking at the White Walkers, right?
Yep.
Now you could call them White Walkers, zombies, whatever you want to frame them, right? But they're living dead. Read something on BBC about if zombies are actually real. Found about organisms that are actually zombies in real life.
Yes.
And I found something about this parasitic fungi. Are you familiar with this?
Which parasitic fungi is it?
So this one was specifically dealing with ants.
Oh, yeah.
And it actually takes the ant as a host, right? It kills the ants, but I believe it's something within the fungi that actually controls the neurosystem of the ant and makes it actually do actions and perform actions while the ant is dead.
Right. It's interesting that something like a fungus can appear to be thinking. And it's just but it really what it is the chemical pathways that this fungus uses. It's not the only one. There's a zombie wasp, zombie raccoons, and raccoons that looked like zombies. And it turns out some diseases that a lot of mammals get, such as rabies, produce this stereotypical zombieism.
I'm scared of regular raccoons.
I know. Now, ice is interesting in that, unlike a lot of things, when it's under pressure, it will actually melt a little bit. And so the fact that this wall is so tall really affects how it's going to behave. At 0 degrees, about freezing, the wall will start out as that blue curve and just slowly melt flat. For over 1,000 years, you're no longer going to have this beautiful ice wall. You're going to have a nice, hard-to-climb ice pancake. So looking at the science and kind of keeping score, George R.R. Martin and the showrunners did a wonderful job modeling the physics of this dragon fire. Dragon glass, they did great. That stuff is going to break and really hurt in the White Walker, even if it's cold. They got that physics really dead on. Valyrian steel. It's based on one of the most technologically advanced weapons of the Middle Ages. It is amazing, and he did a great job capturing that. Ice. Nope. Not at all.
Now, this one really bothered me in season 7. So we have Jaime Lannister, okay, trying to save the day, and he's going after Daenerys' dragon. Forget who saves. I believe it's Bronn that saves him,
Yep.
right?
Knocks him out
he
of the
knocks
way.
him off the horse. Is it possible in any physical way for you to go from being on the riverbed to all of a sudden now you're in 30 feet of water?
Absolutely. It's a fairly mountainous region.
Yep.
And so that mountainous region isn't going to just stop when there's a lake. The idea that you can go kind of off an underwater cliff is totally reasonable.
Arya, which is one of my favorites, okay?
Yes.
She gets stabbed by Wade. Wade comes from that and stabs her a good 10 times through the abdomen. And I swear she survived for another hour. She's running through the city, hurling over things. And I'm like, how is she not dead yet? Her brother got stabbed like 4 times at the Red Wedding and he was toast in like 30 seconds. Is it possible for you to continue doing that many actions and while losing that much blood?
So I could see her living if all internal organs were missed.
She just had bad aim. She
Bad
just
aim,
missed the
just
intestine,
all-
missed the kidney, missed...
Right, and
Okay.
because the big issue is if the lower intestine is punctured, then you've got a lot of bacteria that's going into the body, and that's going to cause sepsis, and you're going to die.
Grayscale, when we talk about actual grayscale, you
Yes.
think of things like skin diseases like leprosy that was probably
Right.
prevalent back in those times. But grayscale seems to be a lot different than leprosy. Is grayscale a real thing?
So I thought it was interesting. I looked in that, and a lot of the other diseases that do cause death have real-world examples, but I couldn't find anything that was similar enough to grayscale to really be
Yeah.
a great thing to discuss.
Gotcha.
But dramatically, it's fabulous.
Last but not least, just for everybody that's going to be going out and purchasing your book, okay, give people a little bit about some other nuggets, maybe some other scientific facts that you didn't talk about today that may be revealed in your book.
Basically a chapter on whether or not Jon Snow should wear a hat. So
Okay.
it's all about how to stay warm north of the wall. And
Because winter is always coming, right?
Right. I talk a lot about wildfire and the chemistry of fire. Probably one of the more interesting chapters is a lot about life at sea. And even though they only have a little bit of sea, they spend a lot of time figuring out how to navigate.
This has been great. We're talking science of Game of Thrones. Who would have ever thought there was this much science in your favorite television show? Dr. Rebecca Thompson, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
Hip-Hop
so
MD,
much.
Hip-Hop Science, G.O.T, baby. Season 8.
There's so much to look forward to in the next season of Game of Thrones, where the Stark kids finally get their ultimate revenge. Will Daenerys and Jon Snow's incestual relationship continue? Will Cersei Lannister continue to be an outright bitch? Whatever the case, while you're watching the next season, look into the nooks and crannies of each episode. You just might be surprised at what scientific details might be unveiled. Get it? Veil, unveil, veil. Anyway, I'm the Hip Hop MD. This is Hip Hop Science. We are off to our next science quest.